Hello everyone and welcome to Fenway Park here in Boston on a beautiful April evening once again for the rubber match here, the third and final game of this three-game AL East matchup between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox. Blue Jays lost the first game, I should say, but came back yesterday to take it 5-4, obviously after losing 3-2 in the opener. And now we'll see Eduardo Rodriguez versus Trent Thornton today to determine who wins this series.
And who better for the Red Sox than Eduardo Rodriguez? He had his best start of the season in his last outing right here to start the homestand against the Cleveland Indians. He went 8 strong, just allowing 1 run, 6 hits and a walk while striking out 8 over those 8 frames. A 4-1 win over Cleveland. It was the only game that Boston was able to take against the Indians in that series, and now he's back here trying to win this series for them.
So a strike swinging to panic, and we are underway here. Thank you for joining us today on the Virtual Jays Network. My name is Jackson Farrell, and the voice you just heard is Drew Frank, doing some color today. So it'll be Joe Panik leading off for the Jays. And he didn't play yesterday, but back on Tuesday, he went 1 for 5 with a single back in the third inning. And he gets a strikeout here swinging to start off the game.
And Panik goes down quietly. He was scheduled to be the only lefty in the lineup today, but plans changed last minute for Charlie Montoyo. During warm-ups, Brandon Drury left the field with an injury. It looked like it was to his left leg. We haven't heard exactly what it is. He hasn't emerged yet back from the clubhouse. And Travis Shaw slots in last minute in the lineup down in the 7th hole. We'll get to him a little bit later.
So Danny Jansen hitting high in the lineup today in the number 2 hole. 290 average on the year. Went 0 for 4 in the opener of this series. Had the day off yesterday. And in fact, the day off he had, he was replaced by Reese McGuire, of course, yesterday. And McGuire had quite the day. Had himself the game-winning home run, in fact, in the top of the 9th inning, as well as a nice double earlier on in the game. As Jansen fouls it off, and it's a 2-2 count. That one's whacked over to the first baseman, Moreland. He'll step on the bag and make the play. So 2 away here to start off this ball game for Randal Grichuk, the designated hitter today.
And Grichuk gets a nice day off his feet. He's been playing center field almost day in, day out for the Blue Jays. Here tonight instead, Anthony Alford slots in the center field, and Grichuk able to DH before continuing this road trip. The Jays don't have an off day for another couple series, so heading to Baltimore, heading to Boston is going to be a lot of work for Grichuk and the Blue Jays, so at least he'll be able to have a bit of a half day off here today as he gets the DH role.
1 for 5 yesterday and 1 for 4 on Tuesday is the normal center fielder for the Blue Jays. Grounds that one over to Bogaerts, shortstop in the shift, and he's going to get safe. So Grichuk is able to beat out the throw from Bogaerts. An excellent display of base running.
And that looked pretty harmless to begin with there. Bogaerts ranging to his right. I think what broke down here for the Red Sox is Bogaerts expected Devers to come and cut that ball off in front of him. Devers doesn't even really make too much of an effort on that one. A little bit too far to his left and a bit too far to the right for Bogaerts. He gets there, gets a glove on it, but just the timing doesn't work out.
Guerrero Jr. absolutely destroys that baseball. And that's going to be the second time this series he absolutely drills one into left field. 433 feet, no doubt about that. His 5th of the season. And the Jays are out quickly here, a 2-0 lead.
And Eduardo Rodriguez was this close to getting out of the inning, inducing the ground ball. Guerrero Jr. shows him exactly how important it is to get every out against this heart of the order for the Blue Jays. And this man, red hot right now, adds 2 runs very quickly for these Blue Jays as they attack early on an absolute blast out to center field by Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
You know, it's interesting. Right off the bat, looked like he was going more in the left. That's why I said it. But it ended up just going right down the middle in the center. That's a hard thing to do in this park. But he shot at 430 feet, so it was a no-doubter off the bat. But, yes, the first one he hit in this series was over the Monster back in the first game. But, yes, 2 home runs in this series, and he's really starting to heat up.
And that's important for a Blue Jays team that's really struggled at the plate almost through the entire lineup. MLB, they rank 29th in runs scored, right down near the bottom, and 1 or 2 bats coming alive like Guerrero Jr.'s as could be a strong start to turning that around.
2 for 4 yesterday with an RBI, Guerrero Jr., and on Tuesday he was 1 for 4 with that home run over the Green Monster in left, as I mentioned. So Hernandez walks quickly here. And now 3 straight base runners have reached, and 2 of them have come around to score, obviously, off of Rodriguez. So a little bit of some struggles early on here, especially with kind of the middle of this lineup. So it'll be Guerrero Jr. steps in, takes first pitch strike, and he's looked great in this lineup as well. Yesterday, he went 2 for 4. Or 2 for 4 with a walk, and in the game prior, he went 2 for 3 with a walk. I mean, he's hitting north of 360 in this ballpark in his career. So I think Charlie Montoya clearly feels you can put him anywhere in the lineup, and he's going to hit right now. It's just going to how things are going for him.
And now he's got Teoscar Hernandez on first, 2 outs, so he's going to have to get the ball into the outfield, but Teoscar Hernandez got some speed. He'll be running on contact.
So after a foul ball, the count remains 0-2. Guerrero Jr. back in left today. He's played some right field in this series, played some shortstop. And he's really shined as that one is into the hole over to short. Bogaerts to second for the force out. But Vlad Guerrero Jr. starts this game off with an absolute bang to center field. It's 2-0 Jays in the virtual Jays Network. And welcome back to Fenway Park. So Trent Thornton will toe the rubber for the Blue Jays today, his 5th start of the season.
And he looked pretty good in his last start. He wasn't necessarily dominating as he faced the Tampa Bay Rays on Friday night, but he was overshadowed big time by Tyler Glasnow. And it was Glasnow who had a stunning performance against the Blue Jays and looked really strong and really overshadowed Trent Thornton. But as the number 5 guy in this rotation, it's hard to complain about what Trent Thornton's given the Blue Jays so far.
And he'll kick things off in this outing already with a 2-0 lead against Andrew Benintendi. Once again, the leadoff hitter, 3rd straight day, at least in this series, for this star outfielder with the Red Sox. Hitting .258 on the year is Benintendi. And yesterday he had himself 3 walks. So technically 0 for 2, but he reached base on 3 different occasions. And on Tuesday he went 2 for 4, a double and a single. As he takes a strike 2 right on the outside part of the plate there. A good pitch from Thornton nibbling the corner. So the 2-2 to Benintendi is swung on and popped up into foul territory. Guerrero Jr. ranging over, gets underneath it, makes the play to retire the left fielder.
And as Benintendi's retired, Now we'll get into the heart of this Red Sox order as it's Devers, Martinez, and Bogaerts. 3 big bats for Thornton to face, followed by Mitch Moreland and Michael Chavis. Then rounding out the lineup, it's Vasquez, Pilar, and Jackie Bradley Jr.
Devers had himself a double and an RBI yesterday. Starts off with a swinging strike. Devers, a guy who hit above 300 last year, or over 30 home runs. And that one is driven into right center, but Anthony Alford, playing center field today for the Blue Jays, makes the play.
And a big outfield out there for Alford to patrol in center. Ranges all the way over to the gap and hauls that one in. He started here on Friday night. He was in right field there. Didn't do too much at the plate as he finished the day 1 for 4. He singled and got all the way around to third, if you remember, in that 9th inning when the Jays were this close to tying it up. He was the tying run left just 90 feet away on a night that overall the Jays didn't have much going at the plate.
Yeah, and that, in fact, was a really close one, as it was actually Bichette who was the final out in the game on Tuesday, but Kevin Pilar made a sliding catch in right to end that game. But if he's behind by a couple of feet, that's a tie ball game, and who knows what happens in the rest of that one. So it's JD Martinez at the plate, and he's in a 2-2 count, once again DHing today. In a quiet series, or a quiet game for him yesterday, rather, 0 for 4, and he gets a strikeout here to end this inning. So 3 up, 3 down in the first for Trent Thornton, who looks to be dialed in early on here. As we head to the second inning, it's 2-0 Blue Jays on the Virtual Jays Network. Welcome back. So, a face we weren't expecting to see today in the lineup, but he steps in with the injury to Brandon Drury. It's Travis Shaw, 7 home runs on the season. And you'll notice that average, but don't pay too much attention to that. Focus on the home runs and the RBI because he's still been generating a lot of offensive production. Just hasn't been reaching base as much because it's kind of a thing, I guess, with Shaw, especially early on, where it's either out of the park or it's in the catcher's mitt for strike 3.
And that's something you should expect to see level out. Maybe a bit of a slowdown on the home run production, and hopefully for his sake, a little bit of an increase on the batting average production.
He strikes out on 3 pitches there. Rodriguez gets him on the high heat.
And that's his second strikeout of the game. He struck out the first batter he faced in the first inning, and now strikes out the first batter he faces again here in the second inning. So 2 good starts to hit the first 2 frames for Eduardo Rodriguez tonight.
So now it'll be Bo Bichette hitting 129 in the year. And he was benched in the first game of this series. But yesterday, he actually went 1 for 3 with a walk as well. And that walk, with 1 away back in the 5th, actually started a pretty big Blue Jays rally in which they scored 3 runs.
And that was the rally that ultimately made the difference in the game, as that's where the Jays got almost all of their offensive production. And yeah, it was a true rally because it wasn't just runners getting on base and a big home run. It was one after the other, walk, hit, a couple hits, and manufacturing those runs.
Bichette fouls off, still in an 0-2 count. And he's still looking to find his groove, but perhaps yesterday is a step in the right direction, you could say, on this road trip. And you got to remember, Drew, I mean, it does, I mean, no game in Major League Baseball is easy per se, but it does get a little easier as the Jays head to Baltimore up next for a 3-game set. It's a good opportunity for any guys who are struggling to potentially juice their numbers a little bit as Bichette strikes out swinging.
And there are certainly a number of players on this Blue Jays team that could benefit for that. Back-to-back strikeouts are just two guys that you're seeing in this inning alone that batting averages could really use a boost. I mean, Shaw down in the 100s and Bo Bichette down there with them. But it'll also be an opportunity for guys like Anthony Alford, who's actually up at the plate now, to see some reps because they faced two tough teams over the past couple series against Tampa and against Minnesota, where you really didn't see the bench getting used all that often. And even a guy like Joe Panik that's looked good at the plate has been left out as a result. So expect to see some mix-ups, not only because of the opposition, but also because of the lack of off days.
And I don't want to paint it as Baltimore, being some donkey team, but they do only have 4 wins on the season. They are 4-20 currently. So some easier matchups, to say the least, for the Blue Jays, especially considering some of the teams they faced, like Minnesota, Tampa. I mean, those are some high-quality teams. The Yankees, of course. Even these Red Sox have some real stars still. And a 2-2 count. The number 9 hitter, Alford, swung on into right field, and the flyout will be caught by Kevin Pillar. He's playing right field for the Red Sox today, and we will see him a bit later in this one. Bottom of the second in Boston. Well, everyone, and welcome back to Fenway Park. The sun continues to set, and these lights will only shine brighter and brighter as the night goes on. And a guy who's used to those shining lights and thrives under that pressure, Xander Bogaerts, 13 for 33 in his last 10. And what a player he is, hitting just shy of 300 to start this season.
And he's been really hot, not just to start the season, but especially of late. 13 for his last 33, including a home run and a pair of RBIs. So one of the guys that's really kept it going at the plate so far for the Red Sox.
1-1.
Debuted way back in 2013. So technically he's a 2-time champ. Has a ring from 2013 and one from 2018 as well with these Sox. And he gets himself a base hit in center field. And Alford has some trouble with it in center. That's been a common theme for the Blue Jays in this series. So Bogaerts gets himself 2 bases. Single, advances to second on the error in center as it scored.
And here it scored an error. We saw last night against Chase Anderson on the mound. It actually wasn't scored an error, and Grichuk fumble in center field costed what was deemed an earned run against him, unfortunately, for Anderson. Here it's a little different because now it starts the inning off, and with Moreland coming up, we saw him move the runner over with a ground ball in the last game, a very veteran and experienced approach. Expect him to come to the plate with the same approach in mind here, as they've got a runner in scoring position and none away.
As Moreland takes a big cut in an inside fastball, evens up the count at 1. We've seen Moreland at first base in every single game this series, and he's a very stable presence over there for the Red Sox. He has a 2021 team option, so some stability, or not some stability, some versatility for the Red Sox when it comes to what they want to do at first. Next year, they could go to Moreland, or they could go in a different direction, perhaps. Moreland with the strikeout, now 1 away.
And as Moreland goes down swinging there, it's nice for Thornton to bounce back here and get an out after the runner in scoring position. Of course, it was just a little single, but feels a lot more than that when he's quickly on second base after the error in center.
Chavis leads the Red Sox with 6 doubles. Albeit, if you're on the Red Sox, you better be hitting some doubles with that big green monster in left. And he's been hitting in the 6-hole, been playing second base in all 3 of these games. Manager Rob Renicky, trying to find some stability and some consistency in this lineup. The 1-1 to Chavis. Check swing. They're going to say he went. Now 1-2. Turns just 25 in August. He's playing second, partially because of his play, but also because Dustin Pedroia is out likely for the season. In 95 games last year, put up 18 home runs, 58 RBI, and had himself a 766 OPS. So certainly some positive signs from the young second baseman, possibly for the future of the Red Sox. As that one carries all the way into deep center, Alfred's there to make the play. And Bogaerts is able to advance to third. 2 away now.
That ball was hit quite far by Chavis. Alfred traveling all the way back right near the warning track before he hauls that one in. And we'll have no problem for Bogaerts scampering over to third base now as Christian Vasquez comes up, who's been one of the hotter hitters for these Red Sox lately.
Grounds that one over to third. Guerrero Jr. fields calmly, makes the throw. And so Trent Thornton does not allow a run in this inning after a leadoff double from Bogaerts, as we'll head to the third now in Boston. And welcome back to Fenway Park, historic Fenway Park, established way back in 1912. And it plays host tonight to the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. In fact, it's the rubber match of this 3-game series. Red Sox took the opener in a close one, 3-2. And last night, the Blue Jays took a close one, 5-4. So it's been a couple one-run games to decide the fate of these two teams. And it'll continue potentially today. It's a 2-0 lead early on here for the Jays off of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 2-run shot in the first. And Joe Panik, who struck out in that same inning, back at the plate.
And those close games have been a theme so far for the Blue Jays. Despite being 4 games over 500 with their 14-10 records, they've got a -3 run differential because they've stayed real close even in the games they've won.
Right about that. Some very good bullpen pitching for them as well, as Panik strikes out, now his second on the day. So it'll be Danny Jansen, who grounded out to first, hitting .286 on the year, that nice monstrous .913 OPS. Starts off with a swinging strike.
Jansen doubled off of Rodriguez in the home opener, where Rodriguez started against the Blue Jays. Jansen finished the day 1 for 2. You only saw him twice because in his third at-bat, it was off of the bullpen and off of Ryan Brazier that Jansen hit a eventually game-winning home run in the 8th, if you remember back to that.
The 0-2 grounded over to third. And 2 away now in this inning for Eduardo Rodriguez, so it'll be Randall Grichuk back up. He's had an infield single back in the first.
And it really showed the value of hustle of guys like Randall Grichuk because it looks like a routine ground ball. He knew right out of the batter's box he had a chance to beat it out, and to both of our surprise, he managed to. And what does that reward him with? Well, a run scored as the next batter, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., launched a home run with 2 outs that otherwise he wouldn't have had a chance to come up in the first inning if Grichuk hadn't been able to hustle all the way over the first and leg out a single to keep the inning going.
Exactly. That base running is so important. We saw that in the Minnesota series with a guy like Byron Buxton, who was able to really generate some offense just with his legs, it felt like. The 1-1 to Grichuk misses low for ball number 2. Jansen and Grichuk, arguably the 2 most consistent Blue Jays hitters this season. If you had to pick one throughout this lineup, who would it be?
It would be one of them. I would go with Grichuk just because we've seen him walk and we've seen him do some other things. The strikeouts have hurt him, but he's been a bit more complete than Jansen, and he started nearly every single game. So that's also another factor. I think he's played about 4 more games more than Jansen so far this year.
Shouldering some big defensive responsibility this season as well. And, played a lot more right field last year, but worked his way into center now. And he's done a wonderful job for the most part in this young season. The 2-2 inside makes this count full with 2 away. So the payoff to Grichuk misses outside. Grichuk reaches for the second time today on a 2-out walk, which will bring up the big bat in this lineup, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And if you missed it in the first inning, well, you missed quite the cannon. 430 feet to center field here at Fenway was that shot. And that one's fouled off into the seats.
Coming into this series, Guerrero Jr. had only been to Fenway Park for 6 games last year, but he was hitting just 160 with no extra base hits. That's 4 for 25. Here so far in these 3 games, he's really broken out. A home run in games 1 and 3 and a big double in game 2.
Fly ball into right field. Pilar is there to make the play, to retire, or to get himself the 3rd out of this inning. We'll see him up next at the plate in the bottom of the 3rd here in Boston. Welcome back on a beautiful evening in Boston. It'll be Kevin Pilar, the former Blue Jay, leading off this inning. Back in right field for the 3rd time in this series, of course. And that one is slapped right over to the second baseman, Panic. He catches it on a lineup, so 1 away quickly here for Thornton. As we take a look at the American League East standings early on, and the Blue Jays holding pace a little bit with the Yankees. They now are 1 game back, though the Yankees have usurped them. They were behind them initially after a bit of a slow start. And the Red Sox kind of in the middle at 11 and 15. They're not quite a basement dweller yet. And Jackie Bradley Jr. playing center field steps in, takes strike 1.
Well, on that standing boards, you saw the upcoming opponent for the Blue Jays, the Baltimore Orioles, who will have a broadcast tomorrow night from Camden Yards as they start the first of 3 games against Baltimore. 4-20 on the season. Not a great start to their season so far at all. I mean, expectations were low, but that low is just a brutal start to the season. They've won 2 straight against the Angels, so believe it or not, they actually started 2-20. And they've strung together back-to-back wins coming into this series against the Jays.
Hard to sell tickets when you've already got 20 losses in late April, but hey, at the end of the day, I'm not with Baltimore. I'm just a commentator. The 1-2 fouled off into the seats. That one wasn't too far from the booth. And Thornton, now just at 31 pitches, looking to be in control. Early on here, just 1 base runner allowed. And it was a single from Bogaerts. He was able to advance to second on an error in center in this first time through the lineup. As that one misses well inside. The slider got away from him. So 2-2 now to JBJ. And that's a fly ball on the left. Guerrero Jr. makes a read on it, takes a couple steps back, and makes the play. So 2 away for the leadoff hitter, Benintendi, who popped out over to the third base side back in the first.
And so this inning, it'll be Thornton. Already retired the right and center fielders, and now he's got the left fielder for Boston. But I'll tell you what, He's sure happy that none of those 3 hitters are the right fielder he faced against Tampa Bay in Austin Meadows in his last start. For anyone that missed it, Austin Meadows carried the Tampa Bay Rays offense against Trent Thornton, responsible for 3 of the 4 runs that he allowed, 2-run home run in the first, followed by a solo shot later on.
Yeah, Meadows really torched Thornton and the Blue Jays that series. And as a result, the Jays dropped 2 of 3 in Tampa, but they're looking to take 2 of 3 at Fenway, and they'll continue that journey as we head to the 4th now. Welcome back to Boston. We appreciate you joining us today on the Virtual Jays Network. Jackson Farrell alongside Drew Frank. And it's going to be Teoscar Hernandez who walked in the first, leading things off in the top of the 4th. So we're moving through this game rather quickly as both pitchers seem to be in control.
Couple early out-of-town score updates. Some afternoon games that finished up on travel day today. The Tampa Bay Rays, we talked about them already. Austin Meadows hit a home run today as he carried the offense once again over the Astros in a 6-4 victory. So they get a little bit closer to these Toronto Blue Jays. And going in the other direction, out west, the story to watch in the National League, San Francisco Giants, who we didn't really know what to expect from them this year. They started out really strong, winning 6 of their first 7. Well, now they've lost 12 of their last 13. So a very interesting and puzzling team out there.
They certainly are, Drew, as Hernandez strikes out. It'll bring up Guerrero Jr. And Guerrero Jr., I want to call him interesting, but I think I've already used that term with him. So I'm going to say fascinating. And the reason I say that is because he wasn't necessarily a quiet signing when the Blue Jays picked him up, but I don't think a lot of Jays fans necessarily looked at Guerrero Jr. as, this top-end prospect. No, he's a guy who's going to come in, worked his way to the major leagues quickly, and a little older, already has his big contract. So he's going to be a guy who's going to try to work his way into the majors more so at the big league level. And he's done a pretty good job of it overall, and he's doing an even better job this season.
And part of his value comes from that contract he mentioned. He signed it before he played a major league game, so it was a risk, but it was guaranteed money, and he's signed through 2023 at only $5 million, which is now looking like it could be a steal.
So he grounds out to the shortstop Bogaerts. 2 away now. But yeah, quite the steal that could be, depending on how he pans out. And certainly one of the more interesting players to watch. I think you got to put him in there in terms of the future core of this team, but you just never know in baseball. So it'll be Travis Shaw, who struck out back in the second. Starts off with taking a cutter low.
And so far, just the 2 lefties in the Jays lineup tonight. And thus far, Rodriguez has struck them both out in all plate appearances so far. Panic off the top of the lineup, 0 for 2, 2 strikeouts swinging. And Travis Shaw, who he faced in the second inning, also struck out swinging on a check swing that he couldn't quite hold up.
That changeup works its way into the zone to put Rodriguez ahead in the count, 2 strikes.
And what makes him so effective against lefties is the slider. Ahead 1-2, watch him maybe bring that out as a put-away pitch.
2 balls, 2 strikes.
Osby misses low, now 2-2. Over 200 innings last year for Rodriguez, the lefty, as that one has popped up to third. Devers makes the play. So 3 up, 3 down for the Blue Jays here in the fourth. And we'll head to the bottom part of the inning. 2, 3, 4 hitters up for the Red Sox. Welcome back to the Virtual Jays Network. We'll see Rafael Devers lead things off in the bottom of the fourth for the Red Sox, who are trailing 2-0. Devers hitting .212 on the year, and he hit above 300 last year, as I mentioned briefly in his last at-bat, in which he flew out to center. But, you know, this year, like I just said, .214 average, a little lower. I know it's still early, Drew, but what do you see Devers more as? A pure hitter who can hit 300 as well as 30 to 40 home runs, or more of just that power long term?
Well, he's a very smooth swing, and I think he falls into that first category, a very well put together hitter, and his power comes as a result of his swing. It doesn't work out from here. You see him go down swinging on that fastball, but when he's got it going and he's got it right, his power is similar to Christian Yelich in a way, where he has a very smooth swing, a very level swing, and when he's hitting home runs, it's more so line drives that there's just so much power behind, as opposed to a guy like JD Martinez that can hit some moonshots with crazy height behind them and more of a power prototype. For Devers, it's more so just very effective line drives, and that's what's really done it for him in the past couple of years.
A very good prospect Devers was just a few years ago, and now he's up at the major league level, tearing things up. 0 for 2 on the day is Devers, as Martinez hits a ground ball over to second. Biggio makes the play. Pardon me, Panic makes the play. Excuse me. Panic gets the out there, so 2 away now.
Panic in the lineup, not necessarily because Biggio has been struggling or anything like that per se, and he seems to be fully healthy thus far. It's just the fact that Panic, I mean, he's played his way into the lineup. He's hitting every opportunity he's got, and it's hard to keep benching him.
A found gem on the minor league deal, Panic makes the play there to get the third out of the fourth inning. We head to the fifth. 8-9-1 hitters up for the Jays, looking to extend that lead. Welcome back to Fenway. In this beautiful ballpark. Really a piece of history it is, and founded way back in 1912 in Chicago's upstart Fenway neighborhood. That is, of course, where it gets its iconic name from. Eduardo Rodriguez back on the mound for his fifth inning of work, and his 68th pitch is a strike swinging to Bo Bichette, the number 8 hitter, who struck out back in the second. And that one's fouled off quickly. 0-2 here. Rodriguez getting ahead. So on opening day in Toronto, Rodriguez threw 6 in the third, 5 hits, 2 earned runs allowed, just 1 walk and 6 strikeouts. So kind of a good day, you know, a solid performance. And you mentioned his last start, Drew, going 8 strong, just 1 earned run allowed, 8 strikeouts, and the win against Cleveland, their only win in that series. I found it interesting. First time in his career he threw 200 innings. Really the first time in his career he threw anything above 140 innings as he strikes out Bichette. But one thing I noticed is ERA kind of the same despite the increase in innings pitched at 381.
Well, and he's done all sorts of stuff to try and change his profile, and you might not notice it by the metrics, as year to year it's pretty similar, as not just his major prevailing stats like his ERA staying close to the same point, but even the underlying stats not so different. Last year he was hit a lot harder with his BABIP, as that went way up, as that batting average in balls in play simply means that he was getting contact that was finding grass and getting down more often than not, and more often than the league average. So if you're looking for a breakout candidate, it almost seems like there's potential for him to just get a little bit luckier and get some more bounces. And yeah, the fact he was able to shoulder that big a load and starting the most games in the MLB last year at 34 and still able to perform is definitely encouraging for this Boston staff that really doesn't necessarily know what they've got in pitchers in the next couple of years.
He debuted way back in 2015 as Alfred Fowles that went off remains in a 2-2 count, but he has to shoulder the load now. He doesn't have a choice, right? He's going to be their number one starter, at least for now, and I think he's going to really, I think he enjoys that opportunity because it gives him the shot to prove himself, as he does there. Now 7 strikeouts on the day, 2 in this inning, quickly 2 away here to Joe. He'll take on Joe Panik now, who also has 2 strikeouts on the day. But, I mean, I think you got to like his stuff. And one thing with Rodriguez, too, he was kind of more of a back-end rotation guy back in 2018, when the Red Sox had all those big dogs, Chris Sale, David Price, Rick Porcello. Now he can learn from them and try to take over. Now, I'm not saying he's Chris Sale because he's not. But what he is a guy who could be, could he reach the potential of maybe a number 2 starter one day?
I definitely think so. And he seems almost more like a guy that, as he gets older and into his late 20s, early 30s, might actually continue to get better. Not necessarily a young flamethrower that's going to see his velo go down and his stuff fade, but more of a pitcher that he's got a crafty cutter and can use his change well, and just as he learns and grows, that might even develop further.
Ground ball to second. Chavis makes the play. So another 3-up, 3-down inning for Rodriguez, in quite the groove here. As we head to the bottom of the 5th, still 2-0 Jays on the virtual Jays Network. Well, welcome back to Boston, the third and final game of this 3-game set between the Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox at gorgeous Fenway Park. And it's a 1-1 series, I guess you could say, although it isn't the playoffs or anything. We're only in April, good God. But both teams have taken 1 game, so this is the rubber match. And both teams would like this third one as they're still trying to figure out what these 2 teams are. I mean, you can probably make the assumption that neither of them are going to be that competitive in the American League, but there's always hope in baseball. That's the beautiful thing about April ball. A 1-0 count to Mitch Moreland, the first baseman. He struck out back in the 2nd. And that one is flown out into shallow center. Alford runs in and makes the play.
Both pitchers really in a groove now. We saw 4 straight 3-up, 3-down innings from Eduardo Rodriguez completed in the last frame, and here you see both teams 3rd and 4th in team ERA in the American League, and the starters have been a big reason for that. Now, Trent Thornton not necessarily carrying this rotation by any means, but to have a solid team ERA, you don't just need one ace going out there and bringing it down with putting up an ERA in the 2s or somewhere around there. You need the whole staff being consistent. And that's what we mentioned off the top. Trent Thornton's really done. He hasn't dazzled. He hasn't put up an ERA that starts with a 1 or a 0, but he's done a more than adequate job for a number 5 guy and rounds out this rotation really nicely.
Chavis swings and misses, so it's a 1-1 count as he grounds that one over to first. Shaw there to the field. Throws to Thornton, who steps on the bag. Now 2 away.
And now 11 consecutive batters retired by Thornton. He looks locked in, and despite 2 early tallies, this has really turned into quite a pitcher's duel, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and those 2 runs all came on 1 swing of the bat by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And that was back in the first inning, 433 feet to center. So it's Christian Vasquez, who himself had a 2-run shot yesterday. The 0-1 flown out to right. Hernandez there to make the play. So another 3-out inning for Trent Thornton here as we head to the 6th on the virtual Jays Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please.
Hello and welcome back. So, a bit of a surprise here.
Number 33.
After 6 straight batters retired, 7 straight batters retired, I should say, Eduardo Rodriguez is going to be taken out of this game after just 5 innings pitched. It's going to be Austin Bryce.
Number 9.
Very surprising move. Not necessarily anything against Bryce or anything, just quite surprising to see Rodriguez lifted so early. He looked absolutely locked in, and now Bryce working for his 2nd game in this series. We saw him on the opener Friday night as he came in relief. He was the first guy out of the pen, faced a few batters, only got 1 out. He came on and really struggled a little bit and was lifted after facing the bottom 3 guys in the order. It was Gurriel, Tellez, Alford. 2 of the 3 reached. He got a fielder's choice, but had 2 runners left on that he had to get cleaned up as Ryan Brazier came in to put out the fire he started.
So Danny Jansen, who's 0 for 2. And now a 3-1 count to lead things off in the 6th for the Jays. Takes the forcing right up the middle there, so a full count. Right up Yawkey Way, perhaps, here in Boston, just outside Fenway Park, that iconic little street. I had a chance to visit that, actually, back in 2016. Didn't get a chance this week yet, but perhaps after the game, maybe we'll go check it out. A strikeout for Jansen there, but, just so much history here at Fenway. And it was actually named a Boston landmark not that long ago. So Jansen's retired, 1 away. And one thing I noticed about Fenway Park is that after the game, I went to stand right next to the field, right kind of at the, in the front row seats down the first base line. It's so bright on the field. Like, you talk about playing in the big leagues, like the big lights, the show. This is it, kid. It's very blinding. And, just compared to a building like the Rogers Center where it's a little more, indoor lighting, feels more like a mall, if I got to be honest. Fenway just truly one of a kind.
And literally and figuratively, of course, fewer, bigger, and brighter stages than Fenway Park to be playing in the MLB.
Ground ball to first. Moreland Fields taps the bag, so 2 away now for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
And Bryce picking right up where Rodriguez left off. For Rodriguez, it was 7 strikeouts in 5 innings, but the one mistake came early. This 2-run shot by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to center field were the only 2 runs he allowed, and those back-to-back hits were actually the only 2 hits he allowed. So his final line on the day was 5 innings, 2 runs, 2 hits, just 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts for a tough situation for Rodriguez to be leaving not in the lead here.
As Guerrero Jr. hits a little flare into right, gets down for a base hit. So a 2-out single for the third baseman. His second hit on the day now.
And that one, a little bit different than his first hit, tell you that much. This one drops just over the head of Chavis, who makes a good effort to go back out there, but very difficult play. Can't quite get there. He fully stretches his arm out, and it'll just drop in for a single now.
But I think that just shows you how good of a hitter Guerrero Jr. is, right? I mean, he can spray the ball, he can certainly pull it, but he can also hit home runs to deep center, as we saw in the first inning. Really able to use the whole field, and so much strength and power in that young body, and it's only going to continue as his career goes on. 0-2 to Hernandez now, who is 0 for 1 on the day with a walk back in the first. So Hernandez strikes out, his second on the day. And Bryce comes in and puts in a good inning of work. We'll head to the bottom of the 6th, still 2-0 Blue Jays. So it'll be Kevin Pillar to lead things off in the bottom of the 6th inning, hitting below the Mendoza line to start this season. He lined out to second back in the 3rd. So Trent Thornton, just 52 pitches here, just 1 hit allowed. Retired 12 batters straight, and that one is hit into left field, get down for a base hit. So, right as I mention it, the Red Sox get their second hit of the day, but still a tremendous start so far for the right-hander.
Well, just the second hit of the day. The first one, a single by Bogaerts that right back up the middle. He reached second base courtesy of an error thanks to Anthony Alford out in center field that didn't result in anything, because since then, it was just absolutely shut down performance by Thornton as he retires 12 in a row, rather, as he just locked in, and Pillar is the first guy to break that streak from Thornton.
So Jackie Bradley Jr. steps and takes ball 1. He flew out to left way back in the 3rd. And that four-seamer misses outside for ball 2. Bradley Jr., 30 years old now. And he's actually a free agent at the end of the season. So certainly some speculation here in Boston. Could he be a guy who gets moved to the deadline depending on where they're at? Or is he a Boston lifer? 5.8 WAR way back in 2018 serves a really good purpose defensively. But he also hit 21 home runs last season. 3-0 the center fielder in there for strike 1.
And he also provides value of a traditional center fielder prototype. He's got a great glove. He's got great range out there. He can run the bases nicely and provides a unique skill set for this Red Sox team.
Ground ball to second, flipped to second for 1 to first for the double play. So the leadoff single is wiped out there.
And Thornton wastes no time clearing off just the second base runner he allowed today, as the very next batter induces that ground ball. And Thornton showing his best stuff here tonight.
Good flip at second by Joe Panik as well. He's looked magnificent defensively this season. Just one error that I can recall way back against the Yankees earlier on this season. Benintendi drills one into right center field. Hernandez ranging back. That one is going to bounce and go out, so it's a 2-out ground rule double for the left fielder, Benintendi.
That one, the first piece of real solid contact that Thornton surrenders. As he starts the top of the order for the third time tonight, Benintendi saw him twice, 0 for 2 on the day, but turns that around with a big extra base hit.
So a ground rule double for Benintendi. So now third time through this lineup, this is where I think it gets really challenging for Thornton. With Devers at the plate with a runner on second. Thornton doing a good job of staying calm, managing the game so far, but in the sixth, he's already allowed 2 hits. He'd only allowed 1 in the first 5 innings he'd pitched. Though misses high, now ball 3 to number 2 hitter Devers.
And this almost might be a sign from Montoya to get someone up in the pen. He was cruising, but you're already into Boston's bullpen, and maybe the wheel's coming off a little bit here for Thornton.
We saw Yamaguchi in the first game of this series. We saw Wilmer Font yesterday. 3-1 to Devers. That one in there for a strike. Good pitch there by Thornton to get back in the count now.
And a big pitch there for Thornton. You have to come to him 3-1. He gets the strike without causing any damage.
Payoff pitch. Ground ball to second. Panik will make the play. So Thornton was able to navigate around a little bit of trouble in this inning and gets through 6. It's still 2-0 Toronto as we head to the 7th at Fenway.
Your attention, please. Now pitching for the Red Sox.
Welcome back to Boston. We're going to see Ryan Brazier, who we've already seen once in this series.
He's been busy for the Red Sox, getting into his 15th game of work here. Really a guy that we've seen quite a bit, even though we're only facing the Red Sox now in the second series of the year. He's played all 3 games this series. He came in Friday night, as we mentioned briefly earlier, to relieve Bryce and get out of trouble he started. We saw him again last night as he pitched a clean inning, striking out a couple. And now he's back in again for his 3rd and final game of this series.
We'll take on Guerrero Jr., Shaw, and Bichette. Guerrero Jr. an 0-2 count. Ground ball to second. Chavis makes the play to retire the leadoff hitter.
Gurriel's been a little bit quieter tonight, 0 for 3 with a trio of groundouts, but he's had a pretty good series so far. He really exploded at the plate last night, and a guy that, you know, you can expect to hopefully see turn things around. Struggled out of the gate, had a big single and scored as part of that rally in the 5th yesterday, and a double earlier, as Shaw himself looks like he might have a double here tonight.
Sprays that one in the left. And he'll slide into second, helmet off and everything. He's got himself a 1-out double. Good use of the whole ballpark here by Shaw.
Oh, exactly. I mean, you see it all the time. A whole lot of grass open in that left field when Travis Shaw comes to the plate with no one on base. Here he shortens up, keeps it simple, and it's a double now with just one away for Bo Bichette.
And it's interesting with Shaw because we've seen him use the left side of the field a good amount. In fact, he actually hit a home run to left center in Tampa. So why do teams still shift so hard against him despite his ability to use the whole field?
Well, it's because when he hits, often you play by the numbers, and the stats still say more often than not he's still at some points gonna beat you, but the numbers suggest that really playing the percentages, you stay in that shift, and you've seen teams continue to stick to that, even though, as you mentioned, he has beaten them quite a bit so far in this short 2020 sample size.
1-2 to the shortstop, Bichette. That one's flown in the left, and it'll get down past the diving Benintendi. Over near the warning track. Shaw's going to come around to score. It's a 3-0 game off a one-out RBI double from the shortstop, Bo Bichette.
Benintendi going all in for that one. Looks like he misses it by just a few inches. Bradley Jr. quickly running over to back that ball up and cut it off before it gets to the warning track, but Shaw able to slide in safely. Not necessarily a ton of speed from him, but he had a great read on it, and as soon as he could tell it was getting down, he started chugging all the way for home.
So the Blue Jays tack on a run in the 7th. It's now a 3-0 game, and Bichette, a huge hit for him. You know that one felt extra good considering the tough start he's had, and I think earlier on in the season, Benintendi probably catches that ball, but Bichette's, starting to get a little more luck on his side. We saw it last night. He got a walk that ultimately started quite the rally for the Jays. And now with an RBI double, perhaps the start of something good for the young shortstop. As that one's shot to left, Benintendi catches this one, and Bichette cannot advance. 2 away now.
On the RBI double, Bichette picks up just his second RBI of the season. It's been tough for him at the plate, and we've seen him time and time again strand runners in scoring position. There, he finally delivers a big extra base hit to cash in Shaw and add a little extra piece of insurance here for these Jays.
So it'll be the second baseman, Joe Panik, 0 for 3. And what a find he's been for the Jays on a minor league deal, making around $2 million now at the major league level. A World Series champ, a Gold Glover. I mean, he's got quite the resume, and a very important veteran. Can do a bit of both and provides a lot of uses, I guess you could say, for this Blue Jays team. 1-1 in there for a strike, so Brazier gets ahead with that slider on the outside part of the plate. 1-2 to Panik has flown into center field. Bradley Jr. back at the track, makes the play. So the Blue Jays tack on a run. It's a 3-0 game off of a Bo Bichette RBI double here as we stretch in Boston. Well, I want to welcome back as we see Anthony Bass and Justin Miller getting warm in the Blue Jays bullpen, but manager Charlie Montoya is going to let Trent Thornton try to work through the 3, 4, 5 hitters of this lineup here in the 7th. His 3rd time through the lineup. He's looked great in this one.
And I think one of the reasons he's staying in this game, the extra run that the Jays just tacked on, courtesy of the Bichette RBI, gives Montoya a little bit more freedom to trust Thornton because, as you said, he looks really sharp and he's continued to deal throughout the outing. Now he's got 3 runs of padding that even if he starts to slip up a little bit, there's a bit more leeway before he starts to get in major trouble of really compromising this lead.
So the 0-2 to the DH Martinez, 0 for 2 in the day. And make that 0 for 3 as he strikes out. Good pitch from Thornton there, right on the outside part of the plate.
The batter, number 2.
And you see, freezes him. He goes to try and swing at that, checks his swing thinking it was a little bit outside. Tell you what, looking at that in slow motion, it looked like he had that fastball timed up pretty nicely if he decided to go around on that one, but maybe for the better for Thornton, he holds up and goes down looking.
And that one is a single in the right field for Bogaerts. So already 1 hit in this one. He's got himself a second and a really good piece of hitting, just waiting on that ball and doing a really good job of using the end of the bat. Some good power, even though it may not look like it, from Bogaerts. So Mitch Moreland steps in, starts off with the first pitch strike.
And just on Thornton's approach so far, he's not necessarily racking up the strikeouts. The strikeouts in Martinez, just the 4th so far in his outing. And that doesn't really even come close to Rodriguez's 7 through just 5 innings. But Thornton, the reason he's still in the game and working thus far an inning in the 3rd and likely more than Rodriguez was able to is because he's getting ground balls and he's not afraid to put the ball around the zone to induce soft contact. He's not really selling out fully for swing and misses because he knows if it's right around the borderline and on the black of the plate, he can still be very effective.
1-2 to Moreland. Cutter low there, so ball number 2. Moreland 0 for 2 in the day. And the 2-2 is chopped foul over near the third base side. And Moreland, I mean, he turns 35 in September, so we were talking a little bit yesterday about kind of more of a team in transition, these Red Sox are, but, a guy like Moreland, at least a stabilizing presence at first. You know what you're getting out of him most days. Good defensively, some power at the plate, and some good veteran experience as well. He's been in the league since 2010. As that one is called a strike 3. Moreland was headed to first. He thought he had gotten himself a walk, but pretty obviously in the zone there for Thornton's 5th strikeout.
Well, 2 strikeouts this inning, both of them looking. The only 2 he's picked up looking so far this game. You can tell Moreland yelling as he's walking out of the box. He's headed toward first base. It was a fastball on the outer half of the plate that caught him, right on that black, and a fastball in the same spot as J.D. Martinez, just on the opposite side, of course. Martinez a righty and Moreland a lefty, but the same premise. The fastball in the outer half, attacking in, freezing them both.
So 2 away from Michael Chavis. The 0-1 misses inside, but yeah, Thornton doing a really good job of freezing up some pretty good freaking hitters in Martinez and Moreland. I mean, you got 2 guys who are very experienced, have good approaches. And here's Trent Thornton in his 2nd season painting corners with his fastball. So Chavis in a 2-1 count. He's been very busy at second. In fact, both second basemen, Panic and Chavis, have. So that one slapped into right field. Hernandez initially broke towards the ball, but had to run back. But makes the play regardless. So ahead to the 8th inning now. The Blue Jays are up 3-0 here in Boston.
Your attention, please. Now pitching for the Red Sox.
Well, I want to welcome back to Boston. We're going to see Heath Hembree get things going in the 8th.
Hembree came into last night's game after the damage was done. It was Darwinzon Hernandez who picked up the loss in that game, pitched a clean inning in relief, but then he came out to start his second inning of work and gave up that big home run to Reese McGuire, ended up deciding the game. But after that home run was hit, Hembree came in to close it out. He faced 4 batters, allowed just 1 single, and retired the other 3 in what was a clean inning of work against the Jays' 9-1-2-3 hitters.
So Jansen gets us started here in a 2-0 count. And the battle at catcher between 2 younger players, between Jansen and McGuire, it's fascinating. You've got a righty bat in Jansen and a lefty bat in McGuire. And there's some similarities. They can both hit for some power when they want to. They can both slug. They're both solid defensively, both young, as I mentioned. But the issue, I think, is that McGuire still has less than 100 games in the major leagues under his belt. Meanwhile, Jansen played 107 games last season alone.
And I think the defense that you touched on, both strong defensively, was a big improvement from 2019 we didn't expect to see. Because they were kind of built coming up that Jansen was more of the offensive catching prospect and McGuire more of the defensive catching prospect. But they both evened out as McGuire surprised at the plate, hitting around 300, and Jansen surprised behind the plate, earning a Gold Glove nomination. So even a more fascinating tandem as they continue to develop, as no true strengths or weaknesses will either prevail one over the other.
As Grichuk pops that one up to the shortstop Bogaerts, 1 away, with Jansen at first off of a walk. His first time reaching today, but we take a look at the starter comparison here. A very solid outing for Trent Thornton.
2 big zeros in the runs and earned runs columns. And hey, the 0 walks also pretty impressive for Trent Thornton. He was working all around the edges of the strike zone, and that's what was the big difference. He kept his pitch count low so far, and I mean, we may still see him come back out. We're not sure if that'll be it for today or not, but what he's done so far has been effective, been efficient, and that's one of the big reasons the Jays are up in this game, and there's still a goose egg on that scoreboard for Boston.
So we see Boston's bullpen get working with a runner at first. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., what a day he's had. 2 for 3, a 2-run shot way back in the first when the sun was still out. A deep shot to center. One of the biggest I think we've seen all year, really, just calling these games. And now he's got a real opportunity to continue this trend forward, Guerrero Jr. does, as they head to Baltimore. We talked a little bit about, a chance to generate some offensive productivity. You're going to have some shaky pitching, really a shaky team in Baltimore. Good opportunity for this young hitter to continue what's been a solid last week or so.
Well, absolutely. He sure has. And a guy that's maybe not necessarily, didn't necessarily dominate in his rookie season. Didn't come in Yordan Alvarez, win Rookie of the Year outright. But one of the candidates you got to watch for a huge sophomore season now. He's a little bit more experienced. He's seen the league. He's seen the routine. And now his experience warrants him a walk here as he'll reach and force runners to first and second. But keep an eye out for just the more seasoned approach that he's bringing this year. Just a little less raw and a little more experienced, and that can go a long way for a young hitter.
And he will make his way to first. So runners at first and second on a couple walks to Jansen and Vlad. Hernandez at the plate. He himself walked in the first. A couple strikeouts as well. Starts off with ball 1. As we move forward in this season, I struggle to believe that either of these teams will be super duper competitive. But if Boston, let's say, goes on a 9-game winning streak and goes 10-3 at some point, and perhaps puts themselves in contention, why will that be? What's going to be working for this Red Sox team that hasn't really been so far?
I think it's going to be the middle of the order, because JD Martinez he's a guy that he could hit he could hit 330 and not necessarily surprise people. We saw Devers and Bogaerts with their batting averages both under 300. They can both get over 300, especially Devers down closer to 200. He's got some ways to go, but don't rule that out. And if those bats wake up, they can make some noise.
And the crowd makes some noise for a good defensive play. Double play finishes off this inning. So it'll remain 3-0 as we hear some Sweet Caroline at Fenway Park. So we'll see Christian Vasquez lead things off in the 8th for the Red Sox. They're going to look to try to start a rally and avoid dropping 2 of 3 to the Blue Jays. They dropped 2 of 3 to the Cleveland Indians prior to this series, and also had a very shaky road trip to Oakland and Seattle, didn't they?
It's been a lot of struggling for them, and this game presents the opportunity for both teams, both losing back-to-back series. You mentioned Boston losing 3 straight, a little worse than the Jays, in peril now with just 6 outs left to play with of potentially losing 4 straight. And after a nightmarish opening week, traveling to Toronto and losing 4 straight on the road to start their 2020, they probably saw this, a lot of their hitters and a lot of their players saw this as an opportunity for some revenge against the struggling Jays team, to get back in the win column and pay a little retribution for the 4 losses handed to them earlier on, but hasn't been the case so far.
And so if this game were to hold, which it isn't yet, as that one's flown into right, Martinez makes the play, but the Blue Jays would be up in the season series 6-1, if I'm correct. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that too is, off that opening sweep that the Blue Jays were able to have. We know this. The Red Sox have some issues in this lineup that you touched upon last inning. Some injuries, some departures. Mookie Betts, how about that? I mean, who's replacing that production in this lineup? I don't think you can, really.
And Trent Thornton's one of many American League pitchers that'll tell you how glad he was to see Betts shipped out to the National League. It's Kevin Pillar singles here to right, and another defensive miscue by the outfielders as Hernandez just bobbles that one, and Pillar sneaks into second.
Yeah, another issue here in the outfield for the Blue Jays. That has to be a big area of concern for Charlie Montiel. We saw it last game with Grichuk having some issues in the center, so he's a DH today. But we also saw Bichette make an error at short. But yeah, in the outfield, some issues for sure with these Blue Jays, just not fielding the ball properly. You'd think they teach that in Little League, for goodness sake.
Well, before all of that went down, I was about to mention Mookie Betts, 5 for 8 in his career against Trent Thornton. The second most hits of anyone in the majors, the first most of anyone not named Austin Meadows against Trent Thornton. That works out for a .625 batting average, of course, in a very small sample size, but he dinged him for a double and a triple, and Trent Thornton, just one of many pitchers who has lines like that against Mookie Betts.
As Bradley Jr. fouls that one back. Count remains 1-2 here, the number 9 hitter. JBJ grounded a double play in his last at-bat. That one grounded to Panic. Jackie Bradley Jr. quickly retired here, but Pillar is able to advance to third, now 2 away.
And it's hard to think that wouldn't have been another ground into double play for Bradley Jr. there, if not for the fumble in right field. That ball softly hits a Panic. Maybe there's a chance they don't have the time to turn 2, but Nothing really overly exciting about that ground ball, almost textbook.
And a good play by Guerrero Jr. there at the hot corner. Catches that lineup from Benintendi. So Thornton gets through 8 innings here as we head to the 9th in Boston.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please.
So it'll be Brandon Workman here in the 9th inning. And he'll take on Guerrero Jr., Shaw, and Bo Bichette.
And maybe a bit of a puzzling move here as Ron Renicky goes to one of the premier pieces in this bullpen. Brandon Workman started the season as the closers, transitioned into a setup role, but definitely more of a high leverage guy. And they start a road trip going out starting tomorrow, actually, where they'll be in Minnesota facing one of the tougher teams in the American League, and you'd think you'd want just about every arm rested that you can get. But instead, Workman comes in here now trailing by 3, looking to keep the lead exactly where it is.
You mentioned an upcoming series, Drew, against the Twins. We saw the Twinkies not that long ago at Rogers Center, and man, that lineup is just gross, and I mean in the good way. This pitching staff is going to... There's a chance they run into an absolute buzzsaw, and that's after dropping 2 or 3 to the Blue Jays, potentially.
And their ace, Eduardo Rodriguez, goes today, so there'll be 2, 3, 4 for them as they test the middle of the rotation against the Twins, and really a big test. You asked in the last half inning, what will it be that the Red Sox need to go on a run and really make up some ground lost early this season in the American League East? Well, how about a big statement against the Twins? They dropped a few series in a row, potentially, unless they can mount a comeback in the 9th against the Jays here. And what better way to show that there's some life to this team than upsetting the Twins over the weekend on the road?
Exactly, especially in a tough stretch that they're in to start this season. And let's say they go to Minnesota, and let's say it doesn't go very well for them. I can't imagine that this market in Boston is already very intense. They demand performance. The Red Sox have had peaks and valleys over the last 15 years. And prior to that, it was mostly disappointment. Do you think that the 2018 World Series buys them time? And if so, how much before this market really starts to get on them?
I think it definitely does. The 2018 World Series, of course, very important for them because it's hard to point at any team as making mistakes when they've got rings to show for it. I mean, even the Chicago Cubs, who traded Gleyber Torres to get Chapman and win that ring, nobody's really on the GM or on ownership for that one because you captured baseball's ultimate prize, and sometimes you got to pay a price for that.
1 and 2 count.
And they certainly have, but I don't think they'll trade in that ring, that's for sure. Bichette strikes out for the 3rd time today. And Workman gets himself a 1-2-3 inning. Red Sox will look to rally in the bottom of the 9th at Fenway.
Your attention, please.
Hunter Miles Giles enters the game. For the 12th time this season, he is perfect still in save opportunities.
Giles.
11 for 11, and you've got an opportunity for him to put a 12 on the board. He's among leaders in terms of closers with saves, not just in the American League, but all of baseball. He has quite the challenge in front of him now. The 2, 3, 4 hitters, Devers, Martinez, and Bogaerts looking to rally.
And no easy assignment. Just about the hardest 3 hitters you could be tasked with in this Red Sox lineup. So Charlie Montoyo not messing around, bringing out the closer Ken Giles. I think there could have been a world where we saw Trent Thornton come out to try and complete the game and work out his own shutout. But, of course, with such dangerous hitters coming up, there's no messing around. Just a 3-run lead, and Giles comes on looking for the save.
So the 2-0 to Devers is swung on, grounded foul past the first base line.
In yesterday's game, we saw, and this is for context of what makes this impressive start even more impressive, we saw the most pitchers used by the Blue Jays in a single game thus far in 2020. They used 6 pitchers. Chase Anderson can only get through 3 innings, so they had to bring 5 different arms out of the pen to finish it off. And now Thornton going 8 strong enables the Jays to use just him and Giles and rest everybody else before they head to Baltimore. Very valuable for Charlie Montoyo's team.
Certainly is. And when you have a closer like Giles, especially, a guy who's not going to mess around, gives you such an opportunity to experiment with the rest of your bullpen. And it looks like he's perhaps started to find quite the groove with essentially a island of misfit toys. As that one is missed by Jansen there. So Devers is going to reach. It was a strikeout that on a wild pitch gets away from Jansen. He's unable to field it. So defensive woes really hurting the Jays in this one. Now Devers reaches here.
And Jansen never really picked that one cleanly. It was down in the dirt, and he kept it near him. Not quite keeping him in front of him, but keeping it near him at the very least. He just, when he gets up, tries to corral it, never cleanly grabs it. And with a little bit of speed in Devers, not necessarily a speed demon, but he can run a little bit. He reaches, and a strikeout for Giles, but doesn't get an out.
That one's popped up. Behind the plate, Jansen makes no mistake this time. So one away quickly here. Martinez is retired. Now Xander Bogaerts, who is 2 for 3 on the day, comes up looking to start a rally for the Red Sox here. Well,
and they sure need one. The beauty of that RBI from Bichette late in the game means that even with the dangerous Bogaerts on, at the plate, and a runner on first, Giles still has the comfort of knowing that he doesn't have the ability to tie this game up. The 3-run lead is a bigger lead than Giles has seen most times he's entering games this season in the 9th, and a little bit of extra comfort, and Bichette, of all times to come through, really valuable there.
Certainly, especially when you get production from the bottom of your lineup. Shaw, who wasn't even supposed to be in today, in the 7-hole, and then Bichette followed him up with a double. So, yeah, some really good production there from the Jays. And that 3rd run, very important. As Giles gets a swinging strike. Now 2 of those. It's a 1-2 count to Bogaerts. The 1-2. Swung on and fouled into the seats. Seeing Giles really start to dial up that fastball. And he's not afraid to go to the corners. He's also not afraid to challenge you, frankly. Jansen sets up right up the middle. That one is popped up. Second base side, panic there. Takes a couple steps to his left and makes the play. So 2 outs now. Mitch Moreland represents the final out of this series for the Red Sox.
And while we talked quite a bit about how a lot of Jays pitchers really need to work down in the zone to be effective, whether it's Ryu or Roark or Shoemaker, these ground ball type pitchers want to stay in the lower half. Giles wants to stay in the upper half of the zone and really maximize his velocity. And that's why you've seen 2 pop-outs so far this inning. If he's staying on the upper half of the zone, generating more opportunity for batters to really get under the ball, and that's what happened to both JD Martinez and Xander Bogaerts as their pop-ups don't leave the infield.
So Moreland 0 for 3, a couple strikeouts. Giles, of course, spent some time in Philly where he came up, spent some time in Houston as well. Traded to Toronto, and he's been very effective since he got here. ERA below 2 last season. In fact, it was 187 at 23 saves. And this year, an ERA of 0. 1-2 to Moreland. Misses low. 2-2 now.
And the Jays, just the one blown save on the season came last night as Jordan Romano blew a lead in the bottom of the 8th. Eventually, though, the Jays battled back to take the lead. He was rewarded with the win, but Giles, a big reason for that, just the one mark.
That strike's called in the zone. Moreland strikes out looking for the second time today. And the Blue Jays win this one 3-0. And so the Jays advance to 15-10 on the season. The Bo Sox are now 11-16 as they'll head to Minnesota for, it's going to be a very difficult series for them to say the least. But, a really good start from Thornton today. Some good pieces of hitting from these Blue Jays. And how about Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. getting the 3 RBI that the Blue Jays needed?
And that's what you want to see as a Jays fans. 2 of the big cornerstones of the rebuild, arguably the 2 biggest cornerstones of what this franchise is going to look to do over the next half decade or so, producing today. And that man you see right there, Ken Giles, a big outing for him, as a big outing for the whole pitching staff. Trent Thornton goes 8 strong, far and away our player of the game, and Ken Giles, how about that? He gets 2 strikeouts and 2 pop-outs in just one inning. A little bit of a quirky inning there, but nothing to complain about at all as this Jays pitching staff continues to roll.
Some excellent pitching today, and we'll see if it can continue into Baltimore. That's the team the Jays will have up next, but this series has to feel good, right? Because the first road series in Tampa, you dropped 2-3. The lineup looked less than mediocre. There were some questions about the starting rotation, some questions about these young hitters. They come to Boston, they drop the first game, and they could have rolled over after that and said, you know what, it's not in the cards for us here. We'll look ahead to Baltimore. But no, they went ahead, put in the work, and that lineup really started to hum a little bit. They also got some incredible starting pitching, as we mentioned.
And that starting pitching could have been a reason that the Jays, you mentioned, might have rolled over. They came into this game a big rubber match, looking to finally win a series. They had back-to-back rubber matches against the Twins and Rays, dropped them both. They come into this one, they've got their number 5 guy going against the ace of the Red Sox rotation, and he goes out there and outduels them. So as a team, you've got to think that would just spark them, and one of the reasons that you probably saw the Jays add on that run late in the game is just trying to get something done for Trent Thornton, who at that point had pitched 6 strong innings, already outlasted the Red Sox ace, and needed some support, and Bo Bichette delivered in tandem with Travis Shaw, and just part of another piece of nice production from this Toronto Blue Jays lineup of late.
And now the Blue Jays, riding high, will head to Baltimore for a 3-game set at Camden Yards. What are you most looking forward to in this weekend series?
I think it's going to be an interesting test for the Blue Jays. They face a team they haven't seen yet. Of course, these Red Sox and Eduardo Rodriguez they faced earlier in the year. And it's an interesting team because the Baltimore Orioles present an opportunity for the Jays to get some different looks in. And we don't know necessarily quite yet what's going to be happening with Brandon Drury. We haven't heard an update yet from the clubhouse, no word back. So that's something to keep an eye on, as he's been an important piece in rotating through the positions and really being a key utility guy for this team. But expect to see some more Alford, who didn't really get much going today. Expect to see more Reese McGuire, who had the day off today against the lefty on the mound despite a major home run late in the game yesterday. And just some new looks from this Jays team as you continue to see what guys have got.
So, looking forward, it should be a very exciting weekend series between the Blue Jays and the Orioles. We will have full coverage of that starting tomorrow evening on the Virtual Jays Network.
And it'll be an interesting matchup to start the series off. As for the Jays, it's the ace Hyunjin Ryu on the mound. Got a 2.76 ERA, so you won't want to miss what he's got. We haven't seen a true dazzling performance from him on the road. He's looked good at home, but outside of Rogers Center hasn't quite gotten it done, so he'll have an opportunity in Camden Yards. And for the Orioles, it'll actually be a former Blue Jays first-round pick. Asher Wojciechowski going for the Orioles. Back in 2010, the Jays picked him in the first round. He's bounced around a little bit, but settled down in Baltimore, and last year posted a career-low 4.9 ERA with them. He'll get the ball tomorrow night, and make sure you're there for first pitch at 7:10.
And we'll see if the Blue Jays can potentially go in a little 3-game heater, all starting tomorrow night in Baltimore. So for Jackson Farrell and Drew Frank, we appreciate you joining us today and spending your evening with us watching the Blue Jays take this series. They win the rubber match 3-0, take 2 of 3 in Boston, and they'll head to Camden Yards next, looking to continue what has been a good start to this season for them. Have a great night, everyone.